Amy.
And I'm Matty.
Today we're going to introduce you to the coaching card. We're going to focus on building capabilities and not on the process or the system. So these capabilities include asking for, providing, and interpreting feedback. And it won't just be us explaining everything that you should know about the topic. This video also contains a few interactive team sessions so you can experience and discuss this topic and apply the tips that we're going to give you.
One of the most common things we heard most through our open source approach to developing MyBest was the need for feedback. Firstly, the ability to provide upward feedback to our managers on how they're doing. And secondly, the ability to receive feedback from the people we work most closely with, and not just our manager.
Just as with sports, we wouldn't wait until the end of the season to give feedback or talk about how we're performing. We wouldn't even wait until mid-season, but do so at every practice and throughout each and every game. The feedback helps us improve our performance because we hear directly about how we're doing and what we're doing well, and then things that we can tweak to make greater strides forward.
In our design work for MyBest, we found that feedback is an integral component, not only to our daily work, but also to our own performance development. This is the intention behind the coaching card, to offer an avenue for feedback that helps us to be at our best.
In the MyBest tool, you'll have the opportunity to ask for feedback throughout the year at any point in time from the people that you work most closely with. As an employee, you can ask for feedback from key stakeholders, such as peers and business partners. And if you're in a people manager role, you can also ask for feedback from your direct reports.
The Upward Feedback Coaching Card is fundamentals of being a people manager at Adidas, drawing upon the new leadership framework. The Insights Coaching Card is based on the 3 C's, as well as performance and results.
All of this together creates an input for driving actions to help each one of us be at the top of our game, contributing to success as individuals and as a team.
As MyBest is grounded in science, let's talk a little bit about what happens to our brain during feedback. Our brains view criticism as a threat to their survival. Because our brains are protective of us, neuroscientists say they go out of our way to make sure we always feel like we're in the right, even when we're not.
Think about that. When we receive criticism, our brain actually works to protect us from the threat it thinks is happening. It does this in one of 3 ways. The first is that we get defensive and attack the feedback or the person, so we want to fight, exactly. We disconnect ourselves from the feedback by putting the fault on other people, so we take flight. Or we stop listening and processing the feedback, so we freeze. No wonder why we can sometimes cringe when we hear the words, "Can I give you some feedback?"
Here's another interesting thing about critical feedback. Neuroscientists have discovered that we often don't remember it quite clearly. Think about a time when you heard one thing, but the intention behind it was something completely different. So your brain got the wrong message. Our goal is simple with the coaching card. Provide our teammates and line managers with feedback that offers them the greatest amount of growth and possibilities to reach their best.
We've taught and attended so many courses on giving and receiving feedback, and things really haven't changed. That's why we'd like to flip the script from how to give feedback and instead transition to a culture that asks for feedback. We believe that asking for feedback puts us in the driver's seat. In asking for feedback, you're putting your brain into a reward state where your mind is open, ready, and curious to hear how you can make improvements and what strengths you already bring to the table.
The best strategy to being open to feedback? Asking for it, and doing so often. You'll be better able to see any challenges ahead of time, and you'll gain experience of responding positively to feedback. Why is it so important to select the best or right feedback givers?
Consider the following when selecting feedback givers, and this can be colleagues, peers, or stakeholders. So 1, who have I worked most closely with over the past few months? At least 3 months is a pretty reasonable amount of time. Another question, who have I had some obstacles with? So who could challenge you? A third question is, who's had a chance to observe me working on a day-to-day or weekly basis? And the fourth is, who has a general understanding of my business and the environment around it?
As we mentioned, our brains can often hit that fight, flight, or freeze response when receiving feedback because we're afraid whatever we hear will be personal or punitive. The way we've designed the MyBest Upwards feedback and Insights feedback, we've looked at 2 things. Identifying the over and underuse of behaviors and suggesting development actions for the future.
As a way to keep people out of fight, flight, or freeze response when providing them feedback, the best thing to do is to suggest future actions. Start first by asking them clarifying questions, like, what would you like feedback on specifically? Or, hey, Maddie, what was your own perception of what happened? You could also ask, what do you think you could have done differently?
Then move on to suggestions you might make for what you would see differently for the future. For example, you know what I might do next time is? Or, I would like to see this in the future.
When receiving feedback, it's tempting to become defensive or explain away the criticism. That's the good old brain trying to protect us. However, take some time to reflect on the feedback, one element at a time, and don't overlook the positives that you hear either. Feedback isn't always an accurate reflection of who you are. It often isn't, but it's always an accurate reflection of how you're perceived. And knowing how you're perceived is critically important if you want to increase your performance and continue to develop.
While it's great to hear the feedback, it's another thing to act on it and practice it. Just like you would act on adjustments a coach has asked you to make on the field or in the gym.
One super easy way to do this, and think about what we do in sports, is if-then planning. By triggering an action to your feedback, your brain starts to make a connection that you're building a new habit, making it positive and automatic over time.
Let's start with an easy one. If my CrossFit coach just told me to keep my bum tucked in the push-up position, the next time I do one, I'll think, if push-up, and keep bum tucked. This starts to build a habit of practice to transition to a new way of doing something.
Let's take a super practical example of that here at work, pulling together everything that we've talked about. Maddie, I think I totally bombed the coaching card video. I absolutely forgot a bunch of lines, and it was super embarrassing.
What would you have done differently if you had to do it again?
I probably would have prepared a bit more and actually memorized the script. But really, I'm wondering, how did you think I did?
I agree you had a couple of bumps, and I think that memorizing and planning a bit more is a good idea. You could also think about visualizing yourself in front of your team where you're more relaxed, so you come across as super authentic.
Yeah, that's really, really good feedback. Okay, so if I do a video again, then I'll prepare by memorizing the script and acting as if I'm in front of my team instead of in front of a camera with thousands of people out there staring at me. I'll practice and give it a shot.
After you've taken time to work on the feedback you've received, follow up with the feedback giver to see if they've experienced your behavior any differently. This shows them that you've taken their feedback seriously and have been working on it, which will make them open up to providing feedback more openly in the future, if they see now how it helps you grow.
Now that we've highlighted the importance of asking for feedback, picking the right feedback givers, and reacting to feedback, you might ask yourself, so when a colleague actively asks me for feedback tomorrow, how do I provide it in a constructive way that helps him or her be at their best?
Today we introduced the coaching card, where we also spoke about asking for feedback, interpreting feedback, and providing feedback.
Thanks for watching. Whee!